Welcome to our Jumpstart session. Today we're talking to Mmanape, and Mmanape is a Mellon Fellow at WITS. She's doing her honors right now. So this month we want to be talking to super course chowers, as I refer to them, and Mmanape is one of them. So we're going to be talking about where she comes from, what inspires her, and the kind of research that she does, which I think is very interesting for me. Welcome to our Jumpstart session, Mmanape.
Thank you for having me.
So, before we get to the research, which I think is one of the most interesting things I know about you.
Yeah.
let's get to know you. Who's Mmanape? Where do you come from?
Well, who's Mmanape beside the name is I know you're gonna giggle about the introvert part because you know the very talkative Mmanape, but is an introverted, shy person who loves to be in her space, and I love reading. So I'm mostly by myself reading. But that's just the social part of it. And beside that, there's the academic Mmanape, who's something else. But I'm from Limpopo in Polokwane. I was born in a village in Skukune. Yes, and that's where my grandmother is. But I grew up in Polokwane, the town. Yeah, so I went to school in Polokwane, finished my matric there, then came to WITS.
Okay. We want to know now, from high school, what was it that really inspired you, or what is it that really drives you? A lot of people do not continue to postgraduate studies. And when we were speaking even before this interview, you were talking about what are your plans for the PhD, and you're already at honors.
Yeah.
So, really, please tell us, what is it that inspires you?
I think for me, it was failure.
Wow.
I know it's a weird concept, right?
Yeah.
But when I did grade 10, I did maths, science, physics, and all those things. And when I was in the middle of it, I realized that it wasn't for me. And physics was hard, maths was hard. I wasn't getting it at all. So, but I was very good in language. And the more I realized that I'm good in language, the more I sat down and read more books, the more I read poetry, the more I read a lot about language. And at that point, I decided to ask myself, what can I be in this field, in language, and realize that the best way for me to find this out is to engage with the language. And the more I did that, the more I attended shows on poetry, the more I realized that I become something else when I'm on the stage. When I'm talking, I become something else when I am engaging and analyzing language. So at that point, when I was busy failing physics and maths, I realized this is my path. I realized that I love language, and I couldn't wait to finish high school to go do language and higher education.
One of the things that is said out there is that a lot of us young people do not read. And it seems like this reading is a thing for you.
Yeah,
you know.
and you realize it. When you're young and people are saying these young people don't read, for you it just comes over like, we have other things to do. But the more you read and you realize how reading impacts your thinking, how reading actually changes the way you think into a better, it doesn't actually colonize you into a particular thinking, but it opens up your mind. You get to be a critical thinker, and you realize, oh, that's why these people wanted us to read. But when you're young and actually just love being on Twitter and doing all those things, you're just like, why do I need to read? Like, I can be going out, I can be tweeting about what I did, and but then when you are in my field and you start reading, you realize the impact of reading. You realize the impact of a book to a mind, and it's powerful.
Sure.
Yeah.
The impact of a book to a mind. That's very powerful itself.
I think so.
So now, computational linguistics. You came to WITS from Polokwane.
Yes.
And then you're doing computational linguistics. How did you get there?
Well, it's through my supervisor and my Mellon mentor also, whom started teaching me in second year. I think the first thing she says is that I'm one of the 5 computational linguistics in the country. And like,
so there's only 5 of them?
I think there's even less, because the other one is in Lesotho.
Sure.
Yeah, so but I think we are talking about African computational linguists.
Oh,
Because I know computer
yeah.
science has Dr. Klein, I think, who's a computational linguist also. But yeah, she's one of a few. There are very few. I think one is also in UNISA, then we have her in WITS. Yeah, there are few. So at that point, when she said that, I was like,
So we're talking here about specifically African languages, people.
computational linguists. And when she said that, for her, she was not trying to brag that she's a computational linguist. She was trying to show us the need for people to work with the computer, for African people who know African languages to work with the computer. And that's why at that point when I met her, I said, yes, I also want to be part of those few people who can be engaging with African languages like that.
So, and I know that there are people who are watching this and they're saying, what on earth is computational linguistics? So, and there might be a child somewhere in Guyana, somewhere in KZN, somewhere in the Eastern Cape, who is looking at this and they do not have a clue what this is about, and they might be in the future one of the few computational linguists. They might get an
we are trying to be one of the many.
Yeah, so please just explain to us what is it about. And what do computational linguists do before we get to the kind of research and the kind of work that you do?
Okay, so I'm going to be a lecture on you because I'm like, in linguistics, well, linguistically, when a word is a compound, the first word always describes the second word. Okay. So I'm a linguist, but what kind of a linguist? I'm a computational linguist. So what is computational linguist? The computational linguist has to do with language and the computer. It's literally the application of language to a computer. And how we differ from computer scientists is that we work with language and the computer and working with real language. Like a computer scientist would work with artificial language, but we work with real language and the computer. So you have lexicographers who do online dictionaries. You have corpus linguists who collect data and put it into the computer, which makes it easier for people to be able to Google things. And there are types of linguists. So every aspect of linguistics will have a computational part of it. There are computational phonologists, those people who do
all these big words.
I mean, like the basic part there is that it's linguistics, right? And linguistics has the five aspects: the syntax, semantics, phonology. Are they five? Yes, they're five. And within that, computational deals with all aspects, but in terms of the computer.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's also about how our computers interact with the language and how we as people who are using computers interact with the computer in our own languages.
Yes.
You made an example when we spoke about this earlier, about the ATM, for example, how you can choose which language you use.
And it's a course you actually take when you do computational linguistics with Masedi in second, you do machine translation. So you learn about the shortfalls of the computer, and you get people who actually dedicate their life into trying to fix that problem of the shortfall of computers, where computers can't translate ethnic information and all those things. So you learn about trying to make the computer as human as we can. As much as I'm like, that can't be possible. But we're trying to have it in such a way that we can have that interaction on a human basis with it. Yes. But it's difficult because, language is complex also.
So let's talk about the work that you do now.
Yes.
Your honors project. You are creating an online dictionary of African languages, and particularly Sepedi.
Yes.
And it's very interesting. Last time, not last time, the episode before this one, we were speaking to Elia Monyela, who has written a book in Kilobedi, which is a South African language that is not an official language.
Yes, there's that.
And it's very interesting that now we're talking to someone who's also dealing with languages. And I think this is something that is very much important for us as Africans to do. Because if we Africans don't do it, then our languages will go extinct. People will say, how are we going to use computers in Sepedi? But you are working on a dictionary that would help computers to be programmed in Sepedi.
And I think the ideologies is what we fight more, because once you hear someone saying, I'm dealing with a computer and African languages, the first thing everyone thinks is like, but nobody uses those options in the ATM about African languages because they're hard. But we have to fix it. We can't just be like, no, the computer doesn't talk the language that I actually speak. We need to fix it.
Sure.
And the only way we can do it is by being ourselves and engaging with it. But if we have the mentality that you can't do it with African languages, then we can't. We'll keep being there.
And this is very interesting to me, because I was thinking about this today when I was just preparing for this interview, that when you go to driving to do like a learner's license, you have to use the computer to answer the questions in the test, and are those in African languages. So that means if you cannot read English, then you cannot have access to, you cannot,
And that is the importance of my honors research right now. That a lot of African intellectuals are lost along the way because of that. You get people from, let's say, Skukune, my village, who come to WITS, who have bursaries from all these mines that are there in Skukune to take them to these universities to come and become engineers. But they fail when they get here. Not because they are not intelligent, but because the language is a barrier.
Language is a barrier.
Exactly. But once you tell people that we need to develop African languages, people start saying things like, but you will never become a global person if you're doing that thing. Well, like, I'm not trying to become a global person. I'm trying to access the higher part of my knowledge and to be able to be knowledgeable,
It's about addressing our own issues and improving our own languages and our own cultures and preserving these for the future, because our kids in the future need to be able to speak our languages, need to be able to interact in our languages, and that's very much important.
It is.
But tell us about your research project.
Okay, so in my honors paper, I'm developing a linguistic dictionary. So it's a dictionary of linguistic terms, because it's a bit difficult, like you say so many linguistics words in there. So it's a dictionary, it's an online dictionary of linguistic terms. That it's an online one, right? So I write the research about its importance, but then again I publish it, right? So the most important thing about it is that it bridges the barrier between first-year speakers of African languages who come into higher education, and they're faced with these big words. Like right now, I speak of the 5 aspects of linguistics, I speak of semantics, syntax, and all that. To someone who just came from the village, those words are not, they're not even in their basic English knowledge. So they find it hard to grasp those knowledge. So what my dictionary does is help them to be able to bridge that barrier of having a concept that they don't understand and actually making it easier in their own language. And also, we are in a technical world. People, like you said, rather pick up a computer and do something on the computer than read. So it's easier for them to be able to have an online dictionary. They don't have to go to the library, which they never do. So, so I was teaching my first years, and they have to read novels now. They're like, I don't even know where current libraries. I'm like, okay. So so
at this time of the year.
At this time of the year. So it bridges that thing for them to be able to have that access, and in a way that they are living, because we are talking about millennials who are more engaged with the computer. So if they can have it, like have that access of information straight to how they access it, it becomes easier. Because we do have this knowledge in African languages, but if it's taught in books somewhere that people never access it, it's not of any importance. And also, the thing about my research is that it codes data, right? So the data that is coded within it makes it easier for people to interact with African languages. You can search the word and find it. And it's something that is very difficult right now, which within computational linguistics, that the computer, you try, like Google Translate, you try to translate something into Sepedi, you're just like, So the more data we collect, the more data we put into the computer, the more easier that process becomes of trying to solve that background of this is not what the word really means in Sepedi, this is what the word means.
So that's really good, and I think a lot more people should be doing that
Yeah,
kind of work.
yeah.
Seems complicated, though.
It
seems
is.
complicated.
It
And you told me that you are not going to just leave this after in your honors work. You're going to carry it on to your masters,
Yeah.
and you're already thinking about PhD. Do you want to talk about those plans and how you're going to take this further?
I think the more I learn, especially the more I did research when I came into my honors project, I realized the kind of work it takes to actually deal with the computer and African languages. It's a drag. To code my dictionary, I always have to go, that simple thing on your word, and I have to go look for those symbols that are there, that are used in African languages. It's a drag. It takes a lot of my time.
Yeah.
So when I did my research, I realized this is a lot. This is a lot. African Sepedi on its own has 7 vowels. So now every vowel actually in every word probably is different. So you now have to go look for the high vowel. You have to go back and look for the low vowel.
Yeah.
You have to go to look for the O that sounds like it's hard.
Yeah.
And I realized at that moment that this could be much easier if what I have to go search for is right here.
On the keyboard.
It's right here on my keyboard. So I said to myself, I want to propose that we develop African languages keyboard. So obviously in my master's, I can't do the keyboard.
Guys, African languages keyboard. So she's proposing to change your QWERTY keyboard and make it easier for us as African people to use.
Exactly. Because there was this guy when we were celebrating Africa Day who came up with a challenge to tweet in African languages. I'm like, this challenge would be so much easier if people had it here. But if someone has 10 minutes to tweet and they have to go look for that symbol and look for that symbol, it's hard. And we are changing the orthography of our language if we are going to use the S that has the abstract on top and where you're going to use an X. That's not how we write it. And now we are changing the whole orthography, and it's not for the good of the language.
And those are the kinds of things that kill the language.
Exactly. Because now we are going to have so many things that are different, and we just don't know what the originality is anymore. So if we have that on our hands, that we are able to just type in our African languages, it's becoming much easier, and we don't have to change this orthography in the long process.
Sure. This is big, man. This is big.
I'm hoping I succeed.
No, definitely. I believe you will succeed, knowing you and how dedicated you are to your work. I believe you're going to make it. And from there, PhD. What are the plans?
Well, I actually do want to become a doctor in the camp for 4 years. Like, have you ever set a time for yourself where you're like, after 4 years, I'll probably be looking at myself like, look at your life. But I'm so sad to becoming a doctor in the next coming 4 years. Well, also the fact that I'm on way straight to PhD and like 5 years. I'm like, how? Sure. But I plan on finishing the proposal, actually, because my master's work will be a proposal. It won't be
the actual.
It will be, this is how we can do it, and this will be its impact. And then my PhD will be, let's apply it, right? Let's have a virtual one. Let's have a mode of it, like a model of it, actually, and see how it works. So I plan on finishing my master's in a year and being able to interact directly with it, and I don't plan on leaving it there. And I think that's what I was telling you earlier, that we social scientists are very good at theorizing.
Have theories
we can sit here and come up with, and that's what, when I was in the US and I was reading for my honors paper, I called my supervisor and said, all what I'm reading is people saying African languages need this, African languages need that, but there is no paper about this is what we can do. This is what done. Yes, I realized that we know how to theorize, we know how to state problems, but we do nothing about them. So I want to apply my work in my PhD and make it work, make it happen, not just sit here and talk about these great ideas and just vanish into becoming a doctor, and you just there for the status. Ooh, I'm a doctor.
Yes, you must do some work and get things done.
Be worthy of that doctorate, and don't just don't just achieve it in 4 years just because you want the status. No, make it that times are moving and these languages need to move with us, not just because you want to become a doctor, but to be able to make sure that you have an impact on it at the end.
So that's very interesting for me as well. So many things are interesting because you know why I say this is interesting. It is because I'm doing my PhD on higher education and the public good. So I'm looking at what is it that academics are doing for the public good in their work, in their research.
I feel like they should be, like every department should have community interaction center.
Yes, you see,
Exactly.
those are the kinds of things that are very much important. And it seems to me that there's a greater good to the kind of work that you would be doing. And we spoke about this earlier. You spoke about what you hope would be done with the keyboard once it's created.
Yes. Like my biggest, when I was reading, I realized that we can't tackle this problem from the top up, from the top down. We really need to go down there. And, when I said that the biggest problem African languages are facing is the ideologies held by its own people. Imagine if we can change the way young African children see their own language from an earlier age. When a child goes into the computer lab, the time they learn computer and realize, wow, this is a consonant that is used in my language and I can find it on the keyboard and I don't have to go look for it somewhere else. They have a bit of confidence in their own language. They are able to produce work in their own languages. We have so many literary scholars down there who are still in primary and all that, but we are in a technical era. They don't get to take the time to write on a book and all that, and they don't have the time to be looking for all those things on the computer. So now imagine what they have that access from that young age. They are able to use it and interact with their own language, and actually their language actually gets to be their first language and not their second language. They are always able to interact with it from that early age. And from the high school learners also get to be able to interact with their language on that level. And I speak of high school more, and that's where my focus will be more, because they are the ones who write more. Primary school, yes, you get to write about how your holiday was. But exactly. It will be implemented at that level, but I want it to be tested out in the high school level where they're engaged with actual writing, where they get to know the consonants of their languages and enable them to write those languages from the tip of their hands, and see how that improves their perspective of their language. And if it improves from there, nobody can tell them different when they come to our universities. Nobody can tell them different if they say, I want to be an African languages scholar. No one can tell them different if they get into a conference and realize that my language is needed in this space.
No, that's very important. That's very important. And I think that the most important thing, and I spoke about this with Elia in the Jumpstart episode we had with him, that if we do not write in our own language, the language will die. And when the language dies, it dies with our stories, because there are things that cannot be translated into English and still have the same meaning as they do in our own languages. And you also spoke about how when we write with the keyboard that we have, and because we are lazy to go there and look for these kinds of things, you use an X, and you're also changing the orthography of the actual language. And in that, you are losing the language itself. It is changing to become something that it was originally not.
It wasn't.
So it's
we shouldn't, change is good, but we shouldn't change because we are pressurized to change, because there isn't any form of resource that accommodates your language. You should change your language based on the fact that it's facing these obstacles academically or whatever, but in a situation where it's improving the language. You can't change because you're compromising the language, But what we are doing right now is compromising the language.
Sure. That's your...
Yeah, and it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It requires so much work.
I'm imagining that this is as you're saying, it's a lot of work, and it's not an easy task to do.
It's not.
And you probably have encountered a number of challenges even in creating the dictionary you're working on right now. And you can foresee some of the challenges that you might encounter even in developing the keyboard you were talking about, and even with implementation. So far, what are some of the challenges that you have encountered in the work that you are doing?
Well, right now, my challenges are language specific because, Spedi has a very disjunctive orthography. They write differently from most Bantu languages. So my biggest problem is saying that this word, is it a compound? Is it is it a word on its own? Do you separate it? It sounds like one word, but the computer can now put it separately. So it's the coding of the words itself that has been difficult. And also the fact that the program that I'm using is not, well, it's not African languages friendly. It's not made in such a way that it can recognize a foreign language. So even if I'm doing a word that is correct, it's highlighted, So those are the things. This is meant to be an online dictionary. You can't have a red highlighted online dictionary. So now you have to now manually actually go and correct all those things. You have to sit down and find ways to make sure that it doesn't change automatically to fit the language that the program was in. So it's a matter of, we need to develop programs that are meant for our language. We need to have a system that works for us. So it's that, and also I feel like the writing also, because Spedi has the problem of, is it Sepedi? Is it not Sotho? Are you talking about the one that has all the dialects? Are you talking about Sepedi only? And, we have Kilobedu in it, which is just totally different from it, and it needs to be classified on its own. So I had like a hard time writing my background. I'm like, okay, now we are going to be specific. We are talking about this Sepedi. So it's hard when you deal with African languages, and that is challenges. But they are not really challenges when people get to realize how similar the languages are, how you can use it based on simple knowledge of your own language, So it's been the language specific problems, and again, implementation of it. You can have an online dictionaries for first years and they still don't use it, and when people don't use it, you don't get to see its impact. You don't get to know if it's really bridging that gap. And I think that's what I foresee also in my keyboards. Like, now I have to fight the ideologies against the languages. I have to make sure that I make it convincible so that these people can use it, And it's only through when people can use it, can people see, and other people see that, oh, actually it works, So it's applying it would be, how would people use it? Will they really use it? How are they going to respond to it? And I think that's been the biggest problem. And obviously the funding part, you need someone to fund you to actually change QWERTY. To be like, okay, now we need to take all those computers in your schools and throw them away. So you need someone to be able to believe in you, to believe that this can work, to believe that this can change actually the way we see our languages, and this can develop them, which is the most important aspect of it.
Wow, that's great. So there's someone looking at this or watching this video from home, and they're seeing this young woman who's doing all these great things and has all these great goals and great plans. What would you say to someone who wants to be doing and trailblazing like you are doing, if you can call it that? And there is, most of the people, or some people, you find that they have that fear that this is so big a project. If I'm looking at the amount of time you're going to take to get to the PhD, to implement what you have started now, can take a long time.
It can.
And it seems like you're so determined that you're going to stick to this thing and get it done. What would you say to someone at home to encourage them who have a dream?
You have to do what you love. There are jokes about that. I once saw
passion, guys, passion.
one joke said, you do what you love and the salary will also show. Like, no, but it's really important to do what you love, because it wakes you up in the morning. You wake up in the morning and you're like, do I really want to do this? If the answer is no, that's not what you should be doing. So follow your passion, and it's beyond. You'll be surprised how much your passion can push you. Sometimes you do great things without even having to put the effort because it's your passion.
Yeah.
And when you're really down, people get to say that, oh, but you're great. You wake up and you are on this interview, and you also get to realize you're great. And it's those things that, you know, that you do unconsciously that will keep coming back and pushing you forward, you know, because you're not always gonna win on this journey. You're gonna wake up and you realize that, oh, I have to have this literature review. You're not gonna love everything about it, you know.
Yeah.
So those things that are gonna be a challenge are gonna be pushed by the passion, and the passion is gonna produce something so great that is gonna keep pushing you forward also. So it's about waking up and doing what you love. And the thing is, people nowadays do things based on what people will say. You know, it's hard. It was hard for me also to take the decision to be an African languages scholar. Why? Because once people hear that you're an African languages scholar, they think you study nouns and verbs. You know, so it was hard for me to actually come back from, you know, a family of professionals and be like, I want to be that person who's always studying. They're like, what? So you have to take that decision that will keep you moving, you know, that will make you wake up in the morning, and that will only be your passion for it. Once you have the passion for it, you are never that down that you actually want to give up. You are down in such that there are challenges in life, but never that you want to give up. Even when you're down, you remember. Because sometimes when I'm down, when I'm like, okay, this year needs to end, I'm like, ooh, that red gown.
And
you're like, that red gown needs to happen. So because it's that passion that is driving me, I've never actually, ever since I decided I want to be a scholar, that I actually want to be anything else. No, I see nothing beyond that. I want to be that. And it's because of my passion that I want to be that.
No, thank you very much. I hope you guys are inspired. So what is most important, and I'm taking from what she said, is that you must follow your passion. You must do what you are passionate about. And that is what will keep you going. And I love to say this, motivation will get you started, but it is passion that will keep you going. Because, for example, you find that you are motivated by the amount of money that you will get when you become an engineer. And I don't have anything against engineers. I appreciate engineers. I have friends that are engineers. But what I'm trying to say is that when I was doing engineering, it was not something that I was passionate about. I'd always been told that engineers they get a lot of money, and so you're going to have this comfortable lifestyle. But it wasn't really what I was passionate about. And because I wasn't passionate about it, the money motivation did not sustain me. And I found myself in the humanities. And if it was not for that decision that I made, you wouldn't be watching this video today. So really,
you'll still be struggling to become an engineer.
You see, maybe I'll still be child by course there. But what I really appreciate is the amount of enthusiasm that I see in that you demonstrate in your work. And when I come to the postgraduate lab, I'm always seeing you there pushing. And it's really that kind of thing that made me see that maybe you are the right person to bring to the show. And I'm really inspired by the kind of work that you do, and I'm hoping that even people at home are inspired by it.
Yes.
Your last words.
Ooh, my last words. African people, we need you in these spaces, and in these spaces, I mean in higher education. You know, you don't realize how much you are needed until you are here. So be here. You know, it's hard, but be here.
Be here. So guys, this is the end of our Jumpstart episode for today, and I'm hoping that you will continue to follow the conversation as it goes. But as Mmanape is saying, be here.
Yes.
Till next time, yield to the push of passion. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Mmanape.